Good morning, everyone. My name is Raina Ghazi, and I'm the Teacher Development Manager for Macmillan Education International Curriculum. Thank you so much for joining our webinar this morning with our wonderful maths expert, Andrew Jeffrey, who will be delivering a lovely session focusing on maths through storytelling. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the questions box. Lovely that you're all able to see one another's comments. As I mentioned earlier, please try to stick to the topics of the webinar itself. But of course, if you want to mention the weather, then feel free to do so as well. As I mentioned, CPD certificates and the PowerPoint presentation will be available automatically after the webinar. So do look out for that in your inbox. It may fall into your spam or junk folders, so do check that as well. I will pass it over to Andrew now. Thank you.
Thank you, Raina. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I see people are in Kuwait. Nice to see you. My name's Andrew. As Raina said, I am a maths consultant, and I love stories. And I think that's one of the things I want to start with, really, is to look at why maths through stories is a good thing. So I'm going to share some stories with you, and I'm going to give you some ideas about how we might use those stories in a maths class. Okay, so let's crack on. I've got three goals for today's session, really. I want to, first of all, think about the benefits of learning maths and think about some lesson ideas by got some primary and secondary ideas. And then finally, I'm going to share with you the three best websites I've found for online resources, because I know sometimes not everyone has access to the books, and that's a challenge. So yeah, there's some good online resources. The three best that I found during my research. So I see we've got some Egyptian, Qatari. That's great. And there's a debate raging in the chat about whether it's morning or afternoon. So just hello. Oh, and hello, Oman, beautiful country. So here we go. I want to first of all think about 4 reasons why I personally believe that stories are a brilliant way for children to learn mathematics. So let's have just a brief run through of those 4 reasons. The first one is everybody loves stories, right? Now, I've never met anybody. You're a very friendly bunch. Look at this. I've met Chet and I reporting for duty. Good morning, Phil. I've never met anybody who doesn't like stories. I mean, we make sense of our life through the stories we tell about them, right? We have a story in our head, an ongoing story of how life is for us and what we've experienced. And everyone has a story. So instantly people can relate to stories in a way that they will enjoy. So why not use stories? Secondly, those of you who enjoy maths will know that it's just a fun thing to do, but there are many people who aren't in that position and who don't have that viewpoint because it seems a bit pointless. Who cares what X is? And it's changed its mind from yesterday anyway, that kind of thing. So I think that putting a context on some maths, making the maths about something, and in all the examples I've chosen, maths that we're going to look at today, maths is about something. So context is important, and it makes children care, because whenever you do mathematics, I asked some children in some primary schools in Sussex, around here where I live in Brighton, and I asked some children, when do you do maths? And I asked in 3 different schools and 7 different age groups, but I got the same answer, which is basically just before morning break. And that's such a shame, because you do maths when you cook, you do maths when you shop, you do maths when you plan, you do maths when you travel. So you're always doing maths. So I want to connect maths to real life. And for children to see mathematics in stories really helps them understand that maths isn't just something you do before break. It's not just something you do to get a pass mark in an exam. And then finally, the fear of maths. No one's frightened of somebody reading a story to them. Nobody's frightened of that, because even in the story, even in the frightening bits of a story, it's just a story. Someone's just reading a book. All right. And I think if we see maths as something that, I'm going to give you a question, you must get it right, is that can be frightening for some people. Whereas I'm going to tell you a story and we'll start thinking about it, is a lot less. So I think the fear of mathematics can be improved. Okay. By stories, right? So what stories are we going to look at? Well, I'm going to look at 6 or 7 stories. I'm just going to talk about some of them briefly to give you some ideas, and then I'm going to give you some in a bit more depth. All right, so let me have a look at the first picture. Here we go. Here are some of the stories I'm going to talk about today. Pretty much all of these books have something in common, which is they were written specifically to help the reader think about an aspect of maths. Okay, and there's stuff right from very basic mathematics up to some quite complicated mathematics too. So let's look at these. And we're going to start with one of my favorites because I think it's a very, very clever book. And I would say this is for younger primary children, and it's called A Place for Zero. Now, I'm interested. Has anyone heard of this book? Has anyone seen this book before? I have a live copy. Just give me a yes if you've seen this book before. See, a few people are typing. Yeah, we've got a no, we've got a yes, we've got a no, we've got a no, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so actually about half of you have seen this, maybe less than half. Oh, and Juliet's actually got a copy, so someone's already going to try and find it. Well, wait and see what you think. So this is a book that I thought, I just picked it up casually in a school library. I thought it was so clever that I bought one. Because zero is a really difficult idea. And so what we call personification, the creating of a character that's zero, who sees there's no place for anything in their life, they seem a bit pointless, is a really powerful idea, I think. So let me start reading it to you. I'm not going to read it all. I'm going to turn to the side so you can see. Okay. Not long ago, Zero lay floating on the calm waters of Central Lake. Did you remember to turn my mic round as well? He could hear the happy cries of the other numbers 1 through 9 as they played in the meadow. Zero didn't play add 'em up because he had nothing to add. He felt he had no place among the other digits. Ah. Zero lived in Digitaria, a curious country ruled by King Multiplus and Queen Adeline. Their positive outlook helped the kingdom prosper. See, I'm already chuckling. Count Infinity. I love that name, Count Infinity. The king's trusted advisor was the one who shaped all the numbers. When old digits retired, he replaced them with shiny new numerals. Every number knew its place. A 7 was the number of days in a week, and 5 was the number of points on a star. A 2 was handy for counting the wheels on a bicycle. The 1s were important because Count Infinity added them together to make the other numbers. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to read every single page of this book to you, although some of you might quite like that. But it basically goes on to talk about how alone Zero felt. He had no place, okay? So he went to Count Infinity, and Count Infinity has this number machine, and he would put numbers in together to see what came out. And he put 3 and 4 in, and out would come 7. And he tried putting a number 1 in with 0, and out came 1. And he said, you see, that's what you are. And he talks about his identity. He's so the clever use of the word identity there. You see, in secondary, we think about identity, don't we? The additive identity is 0. 0 is the identity under addition, and it's a big maths idea, adding 0 to anything. So they just make it into a story. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he hasn't found his place. He doesn't know his value, and so he goes to see the king, King Multiplus, and he gets multiplied in this amazing machine. There we go. You put 2 factors on a product in. So you put 3 and 5 in, and 15. No, sorry. You put 3 and 2 in, and 6 would shoot out the end. But no one had ever put 0 in. So they put 0 in, and it with 1, and out comes another little 0. So now they've made something new and different. And I love what's really going on under the surface of this book, because a place and an identity. Okay, and we actually talk about place value, but I've never been a big fan of the phrase place value, because I don't think to children of the age who are learning about place value, I don't think that phrase makes any sense, really, does it? I mean, how do you relate a child to place value? But 0 doesn't feel valued and he doesn't have a place until they notice that when 0 stood next to 1 and King Multiplus noticed, oh, we're not sure what happens if you get 1 plus 9. And so they decided that when 0 stood next to 1, that would be 10. And you can guess the rest of the story, really. Suddenly 0 has an important role to play. He can make all the other numbers so much bigger. So this is a story that works for me on 2 really great levels. One is actually as a kind of a personal tale of, children need to know that they fit in. They need to know that they belong, So it's kind of a redemption story for 0. It works very well as a metaphor, but it's also quite literal, the effect that 0 has on numbers. And I think there's a really clever idea running through this book, which is this: you don't need to understand everything about place value in 3-digit numbers to really appreciate this book. You can appreciate the book just by thinking about the clever things in it. Just by, we could put 3 numbers together. We could make 32 if 3 stood next to 2, and the 3 would be 10 times as much. And I think you can understand that even if you can't do mathematics. I think it's a terrific book. Okay. Now, someone's just quite correctly pointed out that 0 is quite a new thing. We believe it was the Indians. It's quite likely to have been the Indians, I think, who came up with that as a concept. The Romans didn't have 0, and look how complicated their number system was. So, Zoe thinking year 3, 4. I think so. I think the brilliance of this book is it can work between reception and year 4. Okay, and not many stories can do that. So reception can enjoy the story about, oh, that's nice, he found his place, everyone's kind. Year 4 can go, oh, right, okay, so multiplicative identities, additive identities. So I think that's a really nice, I hope you didn't mind me choosing that one to start with. A Place for 0 by Angelina Sparage, which is a brilliant name, illustrated by Phyllis Hornung. And I think it's a really super book. I'd say not an expensive book, but a very, very clever story. Okay, so that's one for younger children. Let's have a look at one for older children now. Now this book, it's called One Grain of Rice. It's not so well known. Has anyone seen this? 1 grain of rice? No. Okay, I'm going to share 1 grain of rice with you. Someone used it in year 5. Excellent stuff. All right. It's a famous story, and this is just one version of the story. There are many, many incarnations of this story involving rice. So the basic, I don't have this one. I have to confess, 1 or 2 of the books my wife was using with her class at school. She's a teacher, and when I was preparing for this webinar, but for COVID, she's not allowed, for safety, health and safety reasons, she's not allowed back into the school building. So we couldn't rescue those books back from school. But that's okay. I've done something else for those, which I'll share with you in a minute. So this is the story of a chessboard. And there are various versions of the story, but all of them basically contain the same detail, which is that the king wants to show gratitude to, in this case, a girl, in other cases, a man, it doesn't matter, wants to show gratitude and offers, what would you like? What gift can I get you? And the answer is, I'd like a chessboard, which is obviously an 8 by 8 grid, so 64 little squares. And I'd like 1 grain of rice on the first square. And then double it for the next square. So 2 grains of rice on the next square, 4 grains of rice on the third square, 8 grains of rice on the 4th square, and we're sort of halfway along the top line. Okay, and then keep going till you get to the end. All right. Now, I want to generate a wow factor for you. So I want to do with you what I always do with children. Would you write down, please, in the box? Would you write down how many grains of rice you think there will be on the last square? Just have a guess, even if it's an estimate. Okay, I can see lots of people are typing now. Here we come. You may already know, of course. Okay, A mountain, a huge amount. I heard the story. Yeah. Okay. 10. Okay. It's impossible to give the amount of rice. No, it isn't. It isn't impossible to give the amount of rice. It can be worked out exactly. But actually, I see the right answer from Apamabachu. Yes. There isn't enough rice in the world to fulfill this. You cannot. And it's an extraordinarily big number. It doesn't feel that way because you go, what, the top row is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. So 128 grains of rice. That's less than a portion. Yeah, that's less than one portion of rice, 128 grains. It's not Fibonacci, actually. No, it's not. It's so it's called the exponential. It's the powers of 2. So 2 to the power of 1 on the second square, 2 to the power of 2 on the third square, and so on. But 2 to the power of 63 is so many trillion grains of rice. There just isn't enough rice in the known universe. Okay, and this is such a shock to people. Like, it's just a 64 squares, right? But it is an absolutely phenomenal thing. And to think that there's not enough. Oh, there we go. Look, 1 billion, says Elizabeth. I haven't worked that out. Could be right. If you type 2 to the power of 63 on your calculator, it will give you the answer. That could well be it. I'm just going to believe you. Oh, no, that's an odd number. It definitely isn't an odd number. But a good guess. It's phenomenally huge. And this power of doubling up. And of course, the king realizes how wise the person has been and how unwise the king has been. Sometimes I've heard a version of the story where the king says to his children, "How much do you love me?" And one of the daughters says, "I love you more than salt." And that's not a very well received answer, but then they start doing it with salt. 1, 2. And if you, Sarah's just correctly pointed out. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, it actually shows you the numbers. I didn't want to do a spoiler, obviously, for this, but it actually shows you the numbers 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry. A bit more. My drink. I do beg your pardon. Right. One other fantastic idea for this. This makes a superb assembly because it has that real wow factor. In primary or secondary, it makes a lovely assembly. Something else that you could do years ago, and you can probably find it on my YouTube channel if you search Andrew Jeffrey Maths on YouTube. I made, with my kids who are much older now and slightly embarrassed by this video, I made a video about pocket money where one of my children said, "Can I have £10 a day or something?" Another one said, "Can I have 1p on the first day, 2p on the second day, 4p on the third day, 8p on the fourth day," and so on. And I sort of posed the challenge, like, who's going to get more money? Well, it turns out you become with 1p, 2p, 4p, 8p, you are a millionaire before the end of the month, which is quite extraordinary. And in a couple of months, you become a multi-millionaire. So, or in fact, by January the 31st, have a look on YouTube. I've done a video on it anyway, and it's a super idea, and it really does show you the wow factor of numbers. And sometimes I think wow factors for numbers just not it's just not there. It's just like it's too. Just mundane. Do this calculation, now do this calculation, now do this one. But that's just the simple times 2, which I have to say, as a little aside, multiplying and dividing by 2 is one of the most important things I think children can do, or 10. I think if you can do that mentally, you're well on your way to being able to catch lots of things. So mental arithmetic things. So from that point of view, it's good. And just imagine getting children to do that amount of calculation. So I can really, really recommend 1 grain of rice, or sometimes it's called salt, but this is just the one that I like the cover of, actually, but any version of this story is a superb story. I like what Sarah's just put: let children adjust their estimates as they go along, because you can't begin to estimate. You can't begin to estimate sensibly what 2 to the power of 63 is. It's just a fantastic number. And also right from very young, children love massive numbers. Have you noticed? So when they're small, they think that 10 is the biggest number in the world. And that's mainly because of the stories that we teach kindergarten children, isn't it? Where almost every story seems to have the numbers from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 in order. And then songs: 5 little ducks went swimming one day, 10 sausages sizzling in a pan, 10 green bottles. So many of the songs that we teach young children or the stories are quite rightly contain those numbers either on or back. And that's to familiarize themselves. But the song itself, the sound of the number and the way you write the number, neither of those are the number. So to start with, they think, oh, 10 is the biggest number in the world. Then they realize they're wrong. Okay, they realize that actually 20 is the biggest. And then they get obsessed. And I love that. Brenda said, yeah, they've gone on to 100. 100 is a massive, and they love it. Huge number. Then by the time they're kind of 7, 8, they've decided that 1,000,000 is the biggest number. And then they come up with various versions depending on what they've heard. And then when they're about 9, the children often like to tell me that infinity is the biggest number in the world, right? Which is funny because it's not even a number, but let's not go there. Okay. It's certainly not the biggest number in the world. And then I just kind of love this idea that numbers are so fascinating, and they just will love this story. Okay, they will absolutely love this story. So yeah, I love that. Brenda, I used to say to my kids, what's the biggest number in the world? And they'd say something like 11,3, and I go, what happens if you add 1? And I'd get a couple of minutes of silence. It was quite nice. Okay, right, talking of adding 1, here is a brilliant book next. Okay, this is an absolutely stunning book. It's called A Remainder of 1. Now, who has done this? Has anyone seen this book before? I think this is the first book I saw that's mathematically brilliant, that was specifically designed. No one's seen this. Okay, well, again, this is one of the ones that I'm afraid I couldn't get hold of for this webinar. So, because I've got your back, folks, I've got screenshots of all the pages. Yeah, okay. Right. I'm going to read it out to you. Not every single page, but enough for you to get the detail. And I want you to think about how much brilliant mathematics you can get from this in a lesson. So the illustrations and the mathematical ideas, I have to be honest, are a lot better than the slightly iffy poetry, but it works well enough. The story of Joe might just well explain what happens to numbers when they must remain after division and they're left behind as lonesome remainders. It seems so unkind. Did warn you about the poetry. Down by an orchard of young apple trees, the sunshine felt hot, about 90 degrees. So insects all scurried for any cool shade. From mushroom or leaf, they watched a parade. Sorry about this dirty grey arrow. This is because the software we're using, Click Meeting, didn't really like showing my PowerPoint. So we've had to have my PowerPoint with all the animations built in, which means there's a huge grey arrow across the text. But I'll try to remember what it said for you. The 25th Squadron marched past the bug crowd, bound and determined to make their queen proud. The troop had divided by 2 for the show. Each bug had a partner, except Soldier Joe, at which point the arrow was supposed to dramatically fly in. But there you go. So Joe's on his own at the back. Okay. At this point, the idea that it's a 25th Squadron is quite an interesting, clever idea. All right. Now, let's see what happens. Queen's count 2, 3. We are the marching infantry. 2, 3, 4, we're in the 25th Army Corps. And then you see there the Queen looking at Joe, who's at this stage fairly unaware that he's being observed by the Queen. The Queen wasn't pleased. We're unhappy to find that 1 soldier's left at the end of a line. She didn't like that. I'm sorry, Private, said Joe's Sergeant Stephen. You must stand aside so the troop will be even. The 2 lines of 12 then marched neatly away, while Bug Soldier Joe had no choice but to stay. Oh, okay, no, I've skipped a bit. Sorry. Okay. A honeybee hovered above Lone Joe's head. The Queen likes things tidy, the bee sternly said. Oh dear, been told off. Lone Soldier Joe learned it wasn't much fun to find himself labelled remainder of 1. Now, at this point, I want to share an idea with you. Can you remember at school being the one that wasn't picked? When the teacher says, get into pairs, find a partner, and nobody wants to be your partner, or you haven't paired up quickly enough. And it's a kind of a sad feeling. And so this is tapping into what children already understand. Okay, so children understand this idea. And I think children can get right behind Joe. You know, if you weren't very good at sport or something and you were that dreadful thing where the captains get to pick teams that we used to do, and I don't want to be the last one, or I don't want to be in this team, or I don't want to be your partner, and there's always somebody left, or 2 people left who won't pair up because they don't like each other. And this is kind of real life of school. So I think children can really relate to poor old Joe. You know, they don't realize they're doing any maths yet, which is very clever. The brainy bug soldier stayed up the whole night. Perhaps one more line would make everything right. Maybe. Let's see what happens if they put one more line in. All 25 soldiers marched past the bug crowd, nervously hoping they'd make their queen proud. The troop had divided by 3 for the show. Each line seemed perfect. Then someone spied Joe. Oh dear. Up, 2, 3, 4, we're the 25th Army Corps. Queen's count 2, 3, we're the marching infantry. There she is, glaring at him. I love this. So funny. The regal head shook. It's disturbing to find one oddball bug at the end of the line. I'm sorry, Private, said Joe Sergeant Stephen. If you stand aside, the troop will look even. The 3 lines of 8 all marched neatly away, while sad and disheartened poor Joe had to stay. Now, the really kind of switched on kids would realise that the 25th Army Corps had 25 members in, because it does give you clues, doesn't it? It talks about the 2 12s, the 3 8s. Okay. Now, I won't read the whole story to you, because by now you're beginning to see the pattern, and the repetition and the predictability are really important in stories. That's why we're going on a bear hunt. It's such a popular book. And this repeats again. So I'm sure you can guess what happens. Queen has a look. He gets sent away. He gets told off by some different bug. Okay. No, it's this one. Okay. And then they try 4s. They try going in 4s, and even that doesn't work. Okay, usual things. 6 lines of 4, then Joe at the back, Queen looking grumpy. So a very predictable and safe environment for children. Okay, Queen expresses her displeasure. Sergeant says you can't play. And then I kind of like this. I missed this until this morning. A shy dragonfly fluttered over Joe's head. Now, don't get discouraged, the fly softly said. I'd never noticed that. And then it's going to work out. You're probably ahead of the book. You know, we're going to get into rows of 5. But sometimes a little word of encouragement is what it takes. And I thought that's just a clever twist in the story that I'd never picked up before. So he goes to bed and goes, okay, we'll try lines of 5. And then, of course, aha, there we go. There's Joe. But now look, 5 lines of 5. Everyone's in a line. Everyone's happy. The Queen is happy. There we go. Joe is happy because he's in a line. And what a great story. And I think that's smart, Joe. There we go. I think that's a tremendous story. A, it's very clever. B, it addresses human emotion. C, it addresses the biggest need that we all have. The biggest need that we all have, which is to matter, to fit in, to belong somewhere, right? To find our tribe, to put it in a more modern way. And so I think that's absolutely genius. And what a wonderful way to talk about division and remainders. Okay, because division and remainders can be quite a dry story. But as soon as I saw this, I thought that is a very clever idea. Sorry, I didn't mean to say dry story. I meant to say dry topic. But I thought that's a very clever idea. Now, what you would do with this is you wouldn't just read the story, because the stories are lovely, but this is a webinar about maths. You would give them 25 counters, or 25 coins, or 25 little cubes, maybe linking cubes, whatever, and you'd say, can you tell the story to your friend by using the cubes? Or what if there were, how many people are there in this class? Let's have a cube each and see what we can make. So you start to build the idea of an array, and an array is one of the truly big ideas of mathematics, isn't it? Multiplication and division. Okay, terrific thing to think about. So you could then say with other numbers, all right, so you guys, why don't you take 15 counters and see if you can make there'll be one odd man out, or two odd people out, or three odd people out. See if you can have joke and have a friend, or create your others. So you could really have, this links to, I've seen someone said it links to art and drama. Yes, it does. It links to PSHE, doesn't it? It links to PE, get into teams and groups. It's such a genius book. So there it is. It's called A Remainder of One. I absolutely adore A Remainder of One. I think, as I may have said this before, it's what got me into thinking that maths lessons could be taught with stories. Okay, I want to move on to a slightly different type of book now. This book is the odd one out, okay? And it's the odd one out in my list because it is quite a thick book. Here it is, okay? And it's it's not like although there are pictures in it, you certainly wouldn't call it an actual picture book. You can see, this is not a book you want to be just giving a 7-year-old to read or whatever. I would say that I pitched this at 10 to 13-year-olds, probably maybe 14, I don't know. Don't get me wrong, it does have pictures. This is the story of Fibonacci and the rabbits. Okay, there's another one about Pascal's triangle. Okay, how you make, and this is a good example because basically the number devil, very clever. It's been translated into English. It was Hans Magnus Edsenberger wrote this, and it was translated into English. He's a German, and it's a superb story, and it's some good psychology. So what happens is, there's a boy who is in bed one night, and he has a dream that this number devil comes to him, and he hates maths. This boy really hates maths. He hates his maths teacher, who's painted in a stereotypically not great way, to be honest. And the number devil says, "What do you mean you hate maths? Numbers are great." And he takes him on this journey where he says, he starts with one. He says, "All you really need is one. Everything comes from one," and then you build it up. And the boy, it's a very predictable journey, but the boy's attitude slowly changes and his resistance slowly falls away as he learns about the amazing patterns in mathematics. And it's really, and then finally at the end, spoiler alert, he's given a question by his math teacher in class, and he smashes it before anybody else, basically. So he goes from being, not very good, or thinking he's not very good, to actually really quite enjoying it and visualizing mathematics. It's a superb story. The language is good. It's well written, considering it's a translation. They talk about combinatorics and permutations by literally thinking about the different ways the kids could come in and sit down. And it's all practical stuff. There's graph theory, there's really accessible things. Fibonacci sequence, the handshake problem done as a node, and vertex problem. So quite big ideas in maths, but in a really simple way. They use fun language. So that's a very unusual book. I enjoyed reading that myself as an adult because I think it gave me nice ways to teach us. Okay. Nice ways for me to teach others, to teach children. And so there's triangular numbers that come in, so many of the big ideas in mathematics in a great way. And it just takes him through like 10 different nights of his life when he has 10 different dreams, and he goes to number heaven. And it's a very, very, very clever story. I can totally recommend this. Okay. I'm seeing some chat in the chat. At the end of this webinar, I will show you a slide, which yes, you will get as a PDF, with the 3 very best websites that my research was able to turn up when I was preparing this webinar for you. Okay, so it will contain good ones for kindergarten, more or less anything for kindergarten that has. Oh, someone's put a link in. Thank you. Okay. There are so many people who've done so much work on it, but anything to do with number, anything to do with shape, anything to do with vocabulary as well. Not the next one, but the one after, I'm going to talk to you about vocabulary. So the next book I want to talk about was one of our favorites with our children, How Big is a Million? This is a brilliant and entirely impractical book because it comes with a poster. Okay, and the poster is enormous. It's the biggest poster you've ever seen, like film size poster. Okay, so this is a story of a very cute little penguin. Our kids all loved this, but the number of times we had to mend the poster with sellotape because it's so unwieldy. Has anyone seen How Big Is a Million? Let me know if you've seen How Big Is a Million. While I'm waiting for you to type in there, so this little penguin, he wants to know what a million looks like. He's never seen a million of anything. So he says to his mum, I'm going to go out and find what a million of something is. And he goes out and he sees, I don't know if it's 10 fish or something like that. And that's not a million. He sees 100 penguins. Oh, so there we go. We've got a fan. Sarah's favourite book, How Big Is a Million? Definitely, I've used this as a parent more than I've used it as a teacher. That's how good it is. I still remember the shop. I still remember the day I bought this book. I couldn't wait to get home. And then he sees 100 penguins and he counts, that's not a million. And he makes a friend and he plays snowballs with that friend. And he looks at the snowflakes and that's not a million. It's about 1,000. And it's getting late in the day and he's really tired and he hasn't seen a million and he's very disgruntled and he goes home. I mean, I'm obviously paraphrasing. Beautiful illustrations, beautiful in this book. And he goes home and sees his mum and he's a bit sad and, like mums do. She says, oh, don't worry. She puts an arm around him, takes him outside. They look up into the sky and by now it's dark. And there are a million stars. And you open the poster and it's got a million stars on it. Goodness only knows how they did this. But this is a ginormous poster with a million stars on. I haven't counted them, no. So if there aren't a million, don't sue me. But I just think, Sarah, yes, I can relate to that. Yours is battered. Yeah, the poster is absolutely. Our poster just got so much sellotape on it from having to unfold it and refold it and so on and so on. So you can tell whether a book is loved by how much sellotape, how many times it's been mended. But children have never seen a million. I mean, have you ever seen a million? I've seen £1 million once in a museum in a glass case, and that was quite fascinating. But a million of something, wow! I mean, really wow. So I could thoroughly recommend this book. I'm so sorry I couldn't get it out and show you. There'd only just about be enough room in my office to lay this poster out. I can just show you my new office. I'm only showing off because it's today. It's today years old. This is the first day I've had my brand new office, so you can see it. And I could probably just about lay the poster out on the floor. That's how big it is. But what a wonderful thing. You've just written a week of ideas for year 5 for this book. There you go. So a million comes into the Key Stage 2 curriculum. Yes, thanks, Brenda. It is a bit of a nice space here. So I think, please, yes, you've just offered to share it. That'll be super. And my next webinar on Maths and Stories will include a credit to you. So there we go. How big is a million? It's beautifully illustrated. And then you've got that bang smack surprise at the end. And I love the fact that it's not a surprise at all because they know it's coming after the first time, but they still want to see it. It's absolutely superb. Okay, so the word million, as I said earlier, it's like one of those wonderful words that children in year 1 or year 2 are very, very excited to hear because it's such a big number. But here we go. Lots of nice, completely irrelevant comments. Sorry to show you my office. I'm like a kid with a new toy with my new office. So I want to talk about the next book I want to talk about. Our penultimate book is a very, very funny. Well, I think it's funny, but that's because I like puns and wordplay and vocabulary and crosswords and this kind of thing. So I want to recommend to you this book, and it's called Circumference and the First Round Table. I've got a copy here, and if you're sitting comfortably, then I'll begin. But the vocabulary, even though as an adult, you can see the jokes coming. They're still great, I think. So I'm going to do what I did with the previous books, which is just not read them all to you, because that's a bit tedious, but I'm going to read a few bits so that you get, turn that around, so that you get the hang of it. So here we go. Long ago, in a land known as Camelot, there lived many knights and ladies. Their ruler was a mighty but gracious man named King Arthur. During many years of peace and good harvests, the people lived happily. The trouble began when they saw the army of their neighbours to the north gathering at the border. These people, known as the circumscribers, looked as if they might be preparing to make war. King Arthur called upon his bravest and most trusted knights to plan what to do. Okay, so here they are. They're sitting at the table. It's a long old table. Now, I'm going to cut a long story short, swing back round for you. Circumference was married to Lady Di from the town of Amateur. I know, right? And they had a son called Radius. You can definitely see where this is going. Okay. And he was complaining one night to his wife that he had a sore throat from shouting the length of this long table at all his knights. So they had an idea. And you can do this. You can actually give them paper and get them to cut them up. So they cut the long table so that they still had the same amount of table, but they cut it in half and made it into a square. Now, let me digress slightly. Here's my whiteboard. When we got interactive whiteboards like this is just a normal one. When we got interactive whiteboards in schools, I think there was so much we could do on them. Like for the first time ever, I could actually draw a proper regular pentagon, which is great. Okay. But I think we lost something. We lost that tangibility of learning shape by folding paper. And I think that the idea of symmetry, just to answer those questions, there are ISBN numbers on the backs of these, if you just type these into type the names of the titles that I'm showing you into any website or any online bookseller. I can't think of any online booksellers at the moment, but you know, if one comes, oh, there we go. Sarah's bought most of them. Book Depository is good. Thank you, Kerry. That's where I got some because they're often secondhand and cheap, but in good nick. Okay, so I think I paid like £4 for a place for zero and that sort of thing, $5. So you don't need a first-hand copy. You don't need a brand new copy if money's tight. So just Amazon, yes, obviously have them. Anyway, so they worked on this square table, and I think we should give children a piece of paper and say, change it, change the area, redesign it. You could get them to redesign it. But then they realized that at the square table, everyone's chatting at different four corners. So they reconstruct it into a parallelogram by cutting it in half along the diagonal and making it parallel. I just think that's brilliant. I mean, that's actually a rhombus, isn't it? They call it a diamond here, but you could say that's not a mathematical term and all that sort of stuff. So now it's a rhombus, and now the king doesn't like that. Anyway, they go through various different permutations. Then there's another construction you could get them to do, which is to cut the rhombus into an octagon. I've never seen that construction anywhere before. Okay, and that's not working. Okay, that's not working because there's 12 knights and there's 12 knights and only 8 sides, so that's not working. And then, of course, you probably guess what happens, but they're basically out for a ride, and Circumference finds a lovely tree. They cut a cross section of it. They take it back. He says, "Leave the bark on. It's nice." And now they sit at a round table. Okay, and the king's very happy, and he said because Lady Di of Amateur is the same height as the table, we're going to call this this distance the diameter, which is just brilliant, right? Corny, but it works. Okay. Then their son Radius is honoured by being named the height from the centre downwards, and then of course because Circumference, the knight Circumference, decided to leave the bark on around the outside, then the distance around the outside is called circumference. Okay, it's witty. It's not the most, it's not stand-up comedy funny, but it is funny. And it's quite a nice way of remembering the difference between diameter, circumference, and radius. And it's brilliant for vocab. It made me laugh. It made me laugh so much I had to buy it. Okay, and it is a really clever way. If you have children with learning problems, if they have difficulty with memory or vocabulary, I have issues with my memory, very specific difficulty with my memory. So for me, something like that would have been brilliant at school. So I wouldn't have to remember. And anything that helps you like that with mathematical vocabulary has to be a good thing if it makes it a punny, corny thing. Okay, right. Time for another on-screen book now. Now, I should just say before I leave this one that this is just one in a series of books. There's a lot of circumference, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 circumference books. So if you go on to Amazon or wherever and type circumference and the first round table, it'll probably just give you all the other circumference books. This is the only one I have personally, because I'm trying to pare down my as you can see, rather excessive library of books. So I'm trying to get less books, but this one I couldn't get rid of because it just makes me smile at the ingenuity of the story. And I think, and you can see, can't you, how to use that in a lesson. Give children a rectangle, give them some scissors, give them a pencil, give them a ruler, get them to redesign the table, get them to think about why a circle is such a fair way. And of course, there's PSHE here. A round table has no head. There's nobody at the head of the table. And so that's why round tables are popular in some cultures, because they are equality, equalizers. Nobody's like more important. In fact, I remember the story of the Last Supper, when in the Bible, and people were clamoring to sit next to Jesus, like that was the important place. Well, everyone has an equal place on a round table. So I think that's a marvelous one. Right, let's go down to the next one, and this is the last book we're going to look at today. It's an absolute beauty. It was very popular in the UK about 4 or 5 years ago, and it is called One is a Snail, 10 is a Crab. So just put a hand up by saying yes if you've heard this one, or if you've seen this story. There we go. We've got a fan. Juliet's a fan of this one. I wonder if you may have read it or you may not have read it, but it's a super book. And also, more importantly, I think this is a fabulous book for teaching about part whole. You might not have thought of it as a part whole resource. And not just that, there's also the idea of like mental arithmetic, of arrays. Gosh, there's so much that you can do with this book. Plus, it's funny. Plus, you can do guessing and predicting. So if you have seen this book, that's fair enough. Okay, try not to let on too much. Okay, because there's quite a lot of people here who won't have seen the book. So let's go for it. I think the illustrations are just hilarious. The way they do the eyes, I think, is brilliant. One is a snail. This is a snail's foot. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? This is a snail's foot. That's what it says. One is a snail. 2 is a person. And now it's got 2 arrows to the feet. So it begins to give you a clue as to what this book's really trying to say. Okay, so if 1 is a snail and 2 is a person, let's play a little game. I did this morning. It was good fun. Type into the box what you think 3 might be. If you already know, you'll have to just kind of, hold off. A tricycle, excellent. A stool. The answers are already better than the first session we ran. Well done. Okay, very good. Anyone else? It says 5 people are typing right now. An auto. Okay. Tricycle, I like that. Well done, Tiger Tots. Yep. Okay. Tripod. Thank you, those of you who know, for not giving it away. Okay. A tripod. All right. Quite a few votes for tripod. You're very creative. Okay, I'm going to show you what 3 is. You ready? That's a person and a snail. I love that. We overthink things sometimes, don't we? A snail and a person. Okay, I'm gonna assume, Elizabeth, that you definitely were typing that before I showed you. So you get that. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt because I'm a trusting person. It's a person and a snail. All right, and 4. Anybody want to guess 4? Yeah, okay, you've all got that. It's a dog. 4's a dog. Okay, and again, with a class, this is hilarious because it could be 2 persons, couldn't it? Or it could be 4 snails, or a person and 2 snails. They don't think they're doing maths. 5 is elephant. Oh, that's the comment of the day. You win a prize. You win a round of applause from me for 5 is an elephant. That's genius. But in fact, 5 is not an elephant. It is a dog and a snail. Elephant would have been funnier. Okay, now we move away from dogs to 6, and 6 is an insect. So there you go, a bit of science in here as well. Maybe it's just me, but I just think this is hilarious. But hilarious with a really serious thing going on. What's going on here is partitioning of numbers, right? What's going on here is the ability to create numbers from building blocks of other. Which insect is that? Sorry, I can't answer that. This is not a science webinar. I haven't got a clue what insect that is, but I do know that when it sits on a snail, that'll be 7. And so on. So you're getting the hang of this now. 8, anyone? Didn't even realize a fly has 6 legs. Well, wasn't it worth you coming today? I guessed octopus. I was also wrong. It's a spider. Okay. 8 is a spider, and you can have great fun with spiders. And of course, a spider with a snail is 9. And then finally, if you remember the title of the book, you'll know about 10. Oh, 2 dogs could have been 8. Very nice. Yes. You see, but what's brilliant is 2 dogs is 8. And so we start to, as our little brains are starting to think, oh, there's different ways of making numbers. Okay. Now, a little bit of science. Crabs have 10 feet and so on. Crabs looks like a little drum. Okay, don't hit it. That would be cruel. Okay, 20. Any idea about 20? We could play this game all day, but actually, I'm just keeping a wary eye on the time, so we can't. It's 3 crabs, or 10 people and a crab. Or, and here's the thing, you could give children a big bit of paper, you could give them some, probably Numicon would be the best thing, wouldn't it? And ask them to make 20 or draw 30 or whatever. How many different ways could you find? And so completely differentiable. Rose, you've just put your finger on it. This is hilarious. It absolutely is hilarious. And if you're having fun with numbers, if you're enjoying numbers, you're winning, right? Okay, and it's a great way in. So, for the sake of completion, I'll look at the comments. Everyone loves this book. 4 crabs or 10 dogs. I love 10 sunbathing dogs. I've never seen a dog on a beach being still. They're far too excited, but there you go. Mind you, to be fair, I haven't seen 4 crabs playing volleyball, so 50 is 5 crabs or 10 dogs and a crab. Imagine mathematics you're doing to check these. Okay, I'll just keep going. 60, 70, 80, and they become more and more creative. Now, this one I particularly like because it's 8 by 10 or 10 by 8. So 8 lots of 10 is the same as 10 lots of 8. That's quite a huge idea. Yeah, I agree about the people saying the pictures are great. 90. Oh, hang on, I missed 90. 9 crabs or 10 spiders and a crab. So we had 80 here. We just added a 10. Now, 100 is 10 crabs. Or if you're counting really slowly, and I'm sure you've all guessed the ending. If you're counting really slowly, 100 snails. I love it. I'm so sorry I haven't got a copy of it here to share with you, but that's probably even better to see it on there. Now, your mind should be racing at what you can do with this. All right. So you can say, so we've got 1, 2. We haven't got a 3. We've got a 4 animal. We haven't got a 5, we've got a 6 animal, we haven't got a 7, we've got an 8 and a 10. So what can you do? What can you do with those numbers? Are there any numbers in the world you can't make? Or if you take out snails? So what you could do is draw, or if you're not very good at drawing, just screenshot some of these earlier ones where it's like single. Let's just go back to where it's a single one. Yeah, you could screenshot the crab, you could screenshot the spider, you could screenshot the insect, you could screenshot the dog and say, all right, what can you make? Or there are 20 legs on the beach. What's here? And okay, they just think they're doing art, but the mathematics they're doing is terrific. Jocelyn likes this one as well. Can't stop smiling. Do you know what? You've just reminded me of my first time reading this book. I thought it was hilarious. And I distinctly remember the person sharing it with me asking me to guess what comes next. That's probably why I did it with you. So yeah, don't just show them the next page. Ask them to guess. And I think it's so much. For South Africa, I'll just have to change number for interesting. Okay, yes, yeah, you will. Okay, just people draw numbers in different ways. All right. Okay, now I've sort of a bone. I hope that's made you think about all the different ways you can use books, not just read them and talk about them, but actually get some practical maths going on. Okay, but I want to finish, if I may, before we've got some time for questions, with a bonus idea. Now, I had this idea from a session I attended myself only a few months ago, because I'd never really heard of Google Forms. Now, there's a couple of obvious advantages to Google Forms. Firstly, they're Google, so they'll work in every platform. Secondly, they're free. Okay, and thirdly, they're pretty easy and intuitive to use. And with a bit of practice, I made up a story. Now, please don't get excited. This is just a demo story to show you how the technique works, but you don't need any software. Google Forms is entirely web-based. Okay, so this is called Andrew's Webinar Escape Room. Okay, and I built it up. Effectively, all it is a series of web pages with a question on, and depending what answer the user puts in, depends on which web page it takes you. So you can have a page that says a question, then you can have a page that's going correct, here's another question, or a page that goes incorrect, have another go. Yeah, and you can just loop it round. All right, so it's like hyperlinking, but I'm going to cross everything I have now and switch to YouTube. And here's a very, very short one just to show you the possibility. Fingers crossed. Oh, this looks exciting. Andrew's Webinar Escape Room. I decide to buy some flowers for my teacher. Can you count them and find out how many there are? I'll just guess. I'll just put my answer here. No, I'll just click next. Oh, it's a required question. Okay, 3. Let's try that. 3. Next. Sorry. Oh, I have to actually count them. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's try that. 6. Is that right? Let's hit next. Well done. There were 6 flowers. Now we will think about how you paid for them. Okay. If these are the coins I used to pay for the flowers, how much did they cost? 20p, 5p, 30p, 38p. Oh, look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Definitely 5. There we go. Got that one right. Next. Not quite. Try adding the coin values together. Okay. Okay. So that doesn't say what that is, but I recognise the shape. That's 20, 30, 35, 30, 38. That's 38. Oh, look. There's an R. So next. And it says, well done, the coin's out to 38p. Oh, that's good. Your teacher is so happy she gives you the whole day off school. Congratulations. Hooray. Okay, that's marvellous. I'll submit that. Splendid. Great counting. So, there we go. There we go. Okay. Oh, hang on. Oh, dear. Wait a minute. I've got to click this. Don't tell me no. Oh, no. Hold on a second. Go back to that. And there we go. Oh, phew, that was a moment. Right. So that actually took me a bit of time to work out. But it's great. You can create maths questions and put them in basically just a chain. So it's like a story adventure. Almost like, do you remember years ago there were books called Make Your Own Adventure? And there'd be an introductory page, and it would say, if you want to go up the stairs, turn to page 7. And if you want to go into the cellar, turn to page 12. And then the story would carry on. I thought they were genius. But this is a maths version. All right. This is a maths version. And the thing is, you can have open answer questions like the flowers one, or multiple choice ones like the coins one. And it can take you to different places. So that's my little challenge to you as we finish this session today. Can you get onto Google Forms? It's not a hugely complex thing. If you email me, I shouldn't have said that. I will try and send out a link to a little video I made explaining how to do Google Forms, but it took me about an hour to work out. Oh, so not much. So look, there's some books. There's some books online. There's some books on my desk. There's some a story that you make yourself. I think this could be a really fun way to bring mathematics in. Now, I promised you earlier, and some of you were asking what my best kind of web research was. So I spent probably about 3 or 4 days just searching the internet. And there are, trust me, if you type maths through stories into a search engine, you will have millions of pages. But of the millions of pages that I found, I would recommend these 3 to you. So mathematicshed.com and follow the Maths Story Shed. Math Through Stories is a whole website set up by Reading University, who realized there's huge potential in Math Through Stories. And also the schoolrun.com, which is aimed at parents. They have a really comprehensive list as well, and that's where I certainly checked out some ideas there. That is it from me. I'm going to hand you back to Rainer, who can be contacted. Thank you to Macmillan for hosting us. Here are their contact details. But for now, I'll be around to answer questions. But for now, it's Andrew out.
So much, Andrew, for the lovely session, really engaging, and I can tell from the attendees that they really benefited both from the stories and your guessing games as well. So fantastic. If you'd like to ask any questions, feel free. We've actually run out of time, so do contact us if you have any questions. As I mentioned at the beginning, the CPD certificate and the PowerPoint will automatically be available via email. Do check your spam and junk folder as well. Do follow us on social media and also view our upcoming webinars for the rest of the year. Hopefully we might be in a better position in a couple of weeks or months to be back to normal life, but hey, let's see. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in the coming webinars. Take care as always and stay safe. Bye.
Bye.